Hello, my name's Katie Skilton and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's great to have you here. Today I'm going to be sharing a card made using the Gorgeous Girls collection from My Creative Life. This is a new collection that I've recently launched. Now, as you can see, for this make I've used a pastel colour palette. So I've used pinks, peaches, greys with a little hint of rose gold to add some sparkle. I've also used 2 tones of green for the foliage. Now this will really help the card pop when you add that green in at the end. I've placed it all onto a white background, which I often do with my projects because I like that clean and simple look, and I find that using the white background gives me that. Now, if you wanted to, you could place this die cut frame into a frame and use it as a piece of home decor. But today I've added it to a card blank, and the recipient can add it onto a frame if they feel like they want to keep it. So this is made using the My Gorgeous Girls diorama frame set, which gives you the frame and the sentiments, and also the all dressed up die set, which gives you the girls with the floral elements that you can mix and match. So let's start by doing some die cutting. So first I want to die cut my frame. So I'm going to take my standard plates in the Big Shot because this is a standard thin die. I'm then going to place my acrylic platform down, and we can place the cardstock on top of that. Now you might find when you place this through your die cutting machine you get quite a loud noise. That's completely normal, and it's because it's such a large die with a gap in the centre, but it does no harm to either your die or your machine. Now I'm placing the die onto the cardstock and I'm going to run this through the machine. Remember to keep that centre that comes out of the frame because you can place that back into another frame of coordinating colours, or you can use it to cut the flowers and the girls' skirts when it comes to piecing all those elements together. I am now taking the sentiments from the diorama frame set, and today I'm going to be using the Beautiful You. These are beautiful hand lettered script fonts and work beautifully with so many projects, not just the Gorgeous Girls collection. So because I'm cutting from rose gold glitter card, I'm actually going to use my precision base plate. The gold cardstock or the glitter cardstock has quite a lot of layers, and using that precision base plate just helps cut through those layers. Now I'm going to place my die right into the corner of the cardstock because I want to keep the rest of it for cutting the flowers and the shoes later on, and I don't want to waste any of it. So I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine, and I'm going to just take it back a second time to make sure that it's fully cut. Now with a standard cardstock you would only need your standard plate, but with glitter cardstock it just makes it that little bit easier to cut. Now, as you can see, this is cut beautifully, so I'm going to just use my pokey tool to remove those dies. Now, you just want to be careful because obviously they are brush letter fonts, they are quite delicate, but you can see how that's cut out beautifully. I'm just going to remove the little pieces that are in the centres of the letters. So I'm now going to take the U. I'm going to make sure that I also keep hold of that little dot that's in the word beautiful. Now place that somewhere safe because it is quite small, but it does add that finishing touch to it. So let's just remove those little bits that are in the centre of the letters, and then we can keep those letters and place those to the side, and we will be using those later on. So I'm now taking my white piece of cardstock and I'm going to put my frame on top. Now I just need to work out how big I need the white cardstock, so I'm cutting it slightly smaller than the frame just so that the edges don't overlap. I'm just using a pencil to mark it out. You could use measurements if you find that easier, but I always use a pencil to mark it out. So I'm just going to trim off the edges now, and that will be good to add our frame onto. So now I've covered the whole frame with foam pads, I am just going to remove the back from all of them. Now make sure the 3D foam pads are stuck down quite tightly to the frame because you don't want to create any bubbles. This will show through your frame when you come to adding it onto your white cardstock. So we'll just remove the final backing of the foam tape, and there are quite a few, but it does make a difference having no gaps. Now let's remove that, and we can place this onto our white cardstock. So I'm going to position this and make sure none of the white cardstock is hanging from the edges. And I'm going to press that down firmly to make sure there are no bubbles or ridges in the frame. This now gives us a frame to place our die cut into. So we will pop that to one side for the moment, and we can carry on die cutting the rest of the flowers and the other elements. So I'm going to take my Big Shot, and again I'm using glitter card for this. So I'm going to start by cutting some of the flower centres from glitter card. I'm also going to cut a couple of leaf elements from glitter card. We will pop these to the side and keep them for later. Now just place your flower element. I only actually want to cut the centres of the flowers. I don't want to cut the whole flower. So I'm only going to position the die so that only the centre can be seen. So let's take our die and we're going to place it here. Now you can see I'm placing that small centre element so that I'm not wasting too much gold cardstock. And I'm also going to take the leaves and I'm going to place those onto my die cutting machine. And we will run this through a die cutting machine. Now as you can see, I have all my elements die cut and ready from various coloured cardstock. So let's pop those to the side for a minute and bring in our frame, because now we need to make sure the positioning is right. So I'm going to start with the lady's legs and I'm going to pop those into the centre of the frame, just a little bit up from the base. This will give it a perfect position. So I'm going to stick that down with some wet glue. So we're just going to add some wet glue to both of the legs and we will pop her into the centre. This will give us the positioning for all the rest of the die cuts. So I'm going to take the skirt here. Now there are several skirts in the set. There's also some trousers. So I'm choosing the short skirt, but you also have the long skirt there to choose from. So I'm going to pop this down. Now you can choose where you position it depending on how short you want the skirt. So I'm going to place it there and then take the die cut boots. So the boots have been die cut from glitter card and I'm just going to pop those onto the base of her legs. So we'll make sure those are stuck down nicely. And this gives us the base for everything else to be added. From now on it's very easy to add all the other elements. So the flowers I'm going to take, and I'm going to take 3 main floral elements and I'm going to position them onto the card and making sure they slightly overlap. You want to avoid too many gaps because when it comes to the finished product you want it to look like she's holding onto this big bouquet of flowers. So I've got 1 pink, 1 peach and 1 grey. I'm then going to take the smaller layers and start layering them up. First of all I want to stick these down. Now for this I am going to use 3D foam pads. Again, if you wanted to keep it flat to post or if you're popping it into a frame, you could just use wet glue. But I think if you can add those 3D elements, again it just adds dimension to your project. So I'm just going to add some 3D foam pads to the second flower and again slightly overlapping that one so that it's just positioned with no gaps. Because when it comes to adding the leaves, you want the leaves to pop from the top and there be no gaps around the floral elements. So let's add on this final flower and then we can start adding all the other detail. So there's our final flower being popped down and now you can see it's all starting to take shape. So for the rest of the layers I'm just going to add wet glue. So I'm going to start adding the coordinating colours together. So I'm not going to add the flowers all the same colour. For the pink I'm going to layer the peach colour on top and I'm also going to do that the same with the grey. Of course if you wanted to you could keep all your flowers the same colour, so you could have all of the layers the same colour, or you could have them a whole variety of colours, and this is the beauty of this collection. You can mix and match it and you can make so many different elements to what you want. Now that's the flowers added. Now some of the leaves come as stems, so what I want to do is show you how to add colour to those. So this little stem here I've cut from 2 different colours. So I've cut it from a green and a grey and I'm just going to trim the heads of the flowers and the grey and I'm going to use my fine tip nozzle and I'm just going to add those onto the green. This just adds a little bit of those finishing touch details which make all the difference in your project. So I'm just going to stick on the next flower head. Now you do need to be a bit careful with these because they are quite small, so they can quite easily get lost when you start to trim them off. But just trim them close to your desk and they shouldn't fall far. So I'm just using my precision nozzle there to make sure it's all sitting in the right place. And I'll just finally cut this smaller head here and we'll add that one on. This is going to just give us those little finishing touches, and when it comes to adding on all the leaves it will make such a difference. So we'll add that one on there. Now of course if you wanted to you could just add a couple of different layers, you don't have to add them all on. So I'm just going to keep that and pop it to the side for a moment and we can add that in after we've added our leaves. Now for the leaves I've cut them from 2 different greens and I'm just shaping them with my nail. Now this just gives them a little bit of dimension. You could also use a ball tool for this, but I just find it easier to use my nail. Now before I stick anything down I'm going to position them all so that I know that I'm happy with the positioning before I've added any glue to any of them. So it's a little case of playing around with them and making sure you're happy before you add the glue, and going around the whole bouquet and adding them all. So now that I'm happy with all of the positioning, I'm going to start to add on the adhesive. So I'm just starting to glue them all in place. Now you only need a little bit of adhesive at the base of the leaves, because this will help them stand up and keep that 3D shape. So I'm just going to add the final little layers of leaves here. So these are to the base of the bouquet, and you can see this is really starting to take shape, and that green really helps those colours pop. It's such a beautiful fresh colour palette. So I'll add in that final leaf, and that gives us our whole bouquet. Now you can see that this is all positioned beautifully. We just need to add those little stemmed flowers on. So again, just adding a little bit of adhesive to the base of the stem. You need such a small amount, and adding that into the top of the bouquet. And you can see now she's got a real full bouquet. Now earlier we cut some leaves from the rose gold, and I'm just going to add those on each side. They don't need to be completely symmetrical, but if you just add them to each side, it just kind of gives it that even look, because you want the bouquet to be even on both sides. And you can see that rose gold now is really starting to make it look, give it that little bit of sophistication, just give it a little bit of a pop. So these are the centres of the flowers that I cut earlier. There's some large ones and some small ones, and we're just adding those on in rose gold too. So you've got those little hints of rose gold in amongst those beautiful pastel colours. So we'll add on the final one, and you can see that's looking really pretty now. Now finally I need to add on my sentiments. So I've got the beautiful and the you. Now the beautiful I'm going to place across the girl's legs. Don't think that you can't overlap sentiments. They quite often look really pretty overlapping the die cuts. So again, using the precision base nozzle, I'm just going to add the glue at the smallest dots. You don't want it so that it comes out of the edges of the die cut when you're adding this onto the card, because it could possibly mark the white cardstock. So we'll place the beautiful down, and then the U is going to go slightly to the side. Don't always feel that you have to keep the sentiments centrally. They look quite nice sometimes sitting to the side. So we're going to pop that just below the beautiful. Finally, I need to remember to add in that little dot on the eye that I put in a safe place earlier, because again, this is just the little finishing touches that give you that really professional look to your cards. It is quite difficult to stick down because it is a very small dot. So there we have our beautiful card made using the Gorgeous Girls collection. Now of course you could keep it and pop it into a frame, or you could send it somebody and hopefully they like it enough to pop it into a frame. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button, and if you'd like to see more, please press the subscribe button, because it really helps my channel. And I will be back soon with some more inspiration for you. See you again soon. Bye.